When you dream of that pure, unfiltered wilderness escape,
Mhm.
particularly if you're on the East Coast, you probably picture Shenandoah National Park.
Mhm.
You're envisioning the Blue Ridge Mountains, these, endless hazy vistas and solitude. You expect the Rockies of the East.
And you are right about the beauty, but
Mhm.
you are so wrong about the solitude and especially the pace.
Okay.
What you have actually booked, what you have committed to, is a 105-mile scenic drive with a rigidly enforced, utterly uncompromising 35-mile-per-hour speed limit.
Right.
Welcome to the logistical reality of Shenandoah. It is an extraordinary place, but its rules are absolute, and they are governed by federal agents who take that limit very, very seriously.
Okay, so let's unpack this entire environment. In this deep dive, we are dissecting Shenandoah National Park in Virginia, focusing specifically on the Appalachian hiking experience and really cutting through all the slick promotional materials and the social media hype.
Yeah, the Instagram version of the park.
Exactly. Our mission here is to provide you with the essential budget realities, the non-negotiable safety brief, and the final unvarnished verdict on whether this park is right for your type of adventure.
Our goal today is to help you master the inherent contradictions of Shenandoah. I mean, it is intensely accessible, which is a massive asset for many, but that very accessibility makes it prone to these logistical and financial traps that can fundamentally sour your experience if you walk in unprepared.
Right.
We are providing the necessary armor against the common disappointments.
And I'm going to start right now with a bold, maybe challenging claim. Shenandoah is the absolute best training wheels national park in the entire system, bar none, for families or new hikers looking to safely enter the world of ridge hiking.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
However, it is also the absolute worst value proposition for the hardcore solo backpacker seeking deep solitude in a rigorous expedition. You have to choose which Shenandoah you want to visit.
That duality is not just fair. I think it's essential to understanding the place. Based on all the sources we've analyzed, this park exists in a unique tension between wildness and, well, management. Before we even dive into the history and the costs, let's look at 3 core realities that will absolutely surprise you if you think you know this park.
Okay, lay the surprises on us.
Number 1, black bear density. People worry about bears everywhere, but Shenandoah has one of the highest black bear densities in the United States. They are thriving here, and they are highly visible.
So we're not talking about a rare lucky sighting.
No, not at all. We are talking about a large, habituated population that views humans not as a threat, but as a potential source of food, a walking picnic basket.
Okay, that's a big one. What's number 2?
2, this is not a primeval forest landscape. You are not walking through an untouched ancient wilderness. Shenandoah is fundamentally a rewilded landscape.
Rewilded. What does that mean in practice?
It was settled and farmed extensively, so when you hike deep into the woods, especially down into the hollows, you are highly likely to stumble across tangible physical evidence of that past.
Like what?
The ruins of old stone walls, rusted farm implements, old apple orchards that, still bear fruit, and even isolated, forgotten family gravestones deep in the woods.
Wow.
It feels simultaneously softer than the rugged West, but also infused with this profound, almost haunting sense of history and human labor that was ultimately reclaimed by the mountain.
And the third major surprise, which I think underpins every single planning decision you make.
Yes. The structural geometry of the Skyline Drive itself. It runs 105 miles, and it is the only road linking all the major points in the park,
A single artery.
which makes it a linear, logistical choke point. That 35-mile-per-hour speed limit is mandatory, but the average speed, it drops precipitously if, say, you get stuck behind a massive RV driven by a nervous retiree, or, even worse, if you encounter a bear jam.
A bear jam, which is exactly what it sounds like.
It is. For the uninitiated, it's when a bear or a mama bear with cubs decides to stroll near the road, and 50 cars instantly stop to take pictures. What should be a quick 30-mile hop between trailheads can easily transform into a relationship-testing hour and a half of just creaking along.
That is the time dilation you have to mentally prepare for.
You absolutely do.
Speaking of its geometry, the park is physically a very long and skinny shape. A thin strip just draped right over the crest of the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Yeah, that shape means 2 things.
Credible views, for one, but also a challenging sense of true isolation. It's hard to feel truly lost because you are almost always within earshot or, a quick striking distance of that ridge road.
The whole park experience is defined by that spine 105 miles long, barely 5 miles wide in many places. So let's start by figuring out why all of a sudden this historically important but often overshadowed park is experiencing a massive surge in popularity.
Okay, segment one, context, hype, and history. Why is Shenandoah the hot ticket right now?
Well, it's a classic case of supply and demand redirecting travel. The pandemic fundamentally changed visitation. Post-pandemic numbers at the big three, we're talking Yellowstone, Yosemite, Zion, are not just high, they are spirit-crushingly high.
Right, you're running into mandatory reservations, hours-long entry queue.
Massive crowds, even for the most demanding hikes. It's a real
So
problem.
those crowds are pushing visitors to seek out the B-side national parks. And Shenandoah, being so centrally located on the East Coast, is just perfectly positioned to absorb that spillover.
Exactly. People still want a mountain experience, but they don't want the logistical headache of the West. And then you layer on the social media factor. We have to address the fall foliage hype.
Oh, the famous, beautiful, and utterly ruinous tunnel of color.
Ruinous is a good word for it. If you are online in October, your feed will be just saturated with videos showcasing Skyline Drive as this tunnel of orange and gold fire.
And to be fair, the visual sources confirm this. The colors are spectacular.
Oh, they are. The sheer volume of mature, deciduous forest along that ridge creates an unparalleled color density. It's stunning.
But the reality of chasing that Instagram perfect moment is the nightmare scenario we just outlined. Bumper-to-bumper traffic for 105 miles. You are paying your $30 entry fee to essentially sit in a very, very scenic, federally mandated traffic jam.
The drive becomes the destination, whether you want it to or not.
Right.
We also need to manage expectations for geography, especially for the elevation snobs joining us from the Mountain West.
Yes, this is not the Rockies.
No. The highest peak, Hawksbill, is only slightly over 4,000 feet. It's not breaking any records for height.
But height is irrelevant here. It's all about the prominence. The park is situated on this relatively isolated ridge, so when you stand on a peak, you look down dramatically into the Shenandoah Valley on one side.
And the rolling Piedmont region on the other.
Exactly. That feeling of looking down gives you the iconic sweeping views that really define the Blue Ridge experience.
And that name, Blue Ridge, this is where we can add a layer of scientific weight. The blue haze isn't just atmospheric perspective, it is literally scientific.
Okay, explain that.
The dense canopy of trees, which are primarily oaks and hickories, releases a volatile organic compound called isoprene.
That's fascinating. Isoprene.
Yes, isoprene interacts with sunlight and the regional humidity to scatter blue light, creating that signature ethereal blue tint over the mountains. It is a stunning natural phenomenon, a characteristic smog created by the forest itself.
But that same phenomenon contributes to the physical experience in July and August.
It absolutely does. Isoprene interacting with sunlight and other pollutants can be a component of ground-level ozone, and it absolutely contributes to that feeling of dense, thick humidity.
This is the South, after all. You must prepare for sweaty, heavy air hikes if you visit midsummer.
And here's where the intellectual weight of this deep dive truly lands. The history of displacement. We mentioned the rewilded landscape, but we have to spend some real time on how that happened. This park has a genuinely tragic origin story, dating back to its creation in the 1930s.
This is the government's process of using eminent domain to clear the land for the park.
Precisely. They decided that the area needed to be cleared to achieve the ideal of a natural park experience for visitors, using the justification that these communities, which were often isolated and practicing subsistence farming, were, well, economically non-viable.
Or they were squatting on land the state wanted.
Exactly. And we are talking about hundreds of families, people who had lived in those hollows for generations, often with deep family cemeteries and established homesteads that predated the Civil War. This wasn't a transient population.
Their roots were profoundly deep in those mountains.
The sources indicate the process was often cruel, rushed, and legally enforced, forcing entire communities to relocate with minimal compensation. The government's priority was establishing a clean slate for the National Park Service.
And this is why, when you are hiking, you don't feel like you are exploring an untouched land.
No, you're constantly encountering the ghostly evidence of that human presence. It's not just an old stone wall, it's a property line built by a family in the 1890s.
You might find a single foundation of a chimney deep in the woods.
Or a small, fenced-off family plot, maybe 6 gravestones, completely surrounded by reclaimed nature. It creates a profound vibe shift.
How so?
Well, when you are on the trail, the narrative isn't about the grand, brutal confrontation of man against untamed nature, which is the typical Western park narrative. Here, it's about observing nature taking back what man left
It makes the entire environment feel softer, historically saturated.
and imbued with a quiet melancholy that adds incredible depth to the experience.
So, to synthesize that crucial historical context for you before we move on, acknowledge that history. It makes the plays deeper. But practically speaking, the key takeaway from this segment must be you have to accept that this is primarily a driving park. You will drive, you will park, you will hike a short distance to a view, and you will drive again. It is simply not designed for the traditional week-long, multi-day wilderness experience.
Unless you are strictly section hiking the Appalachian Trail, which utilizes that same ridge spine.
That mental acceptance is the foundation of a successful trip. If you fight the driving park model, you will be miserable.
Absolutely.
So let's embrace the drive and talk about the traps hidden in that experience. Segment 2, First Impressions, and the Skyline Drive time dilation trap. We need to detail the emotional and physical experience of entering this managed bubble.
Well, we specifically looked at the north entrance at Front Royal, and the transition is jarring. It's the intensity of modern Virginia sprawl right up to the boundary.
Right, you've been dealing with strip malls, gas stations, chain restaurants, all of modern commercial America, and then you hit the gate.
Yeah, you pay the fee, and immediately you are starting an intense, winding climb onto the ridge.
The contract is immediate, but what impressed me was the quality of the road itself. This is not a rough, dusty mountain track.
No, Skyline Drive is an immaculately paved ribbon, but that paving speaks to its original purpose. It wasn't engineered for speed or utility.
It was engineered purely for aesthetic pleasure, featuring 75 overlooks precisely placed to maximize the experience of the drive. It's a civilian conservation corps marvel.
It's an automotive museum piece, in a way. And that engineering is what forces the first wave of visitor anxiety when they consult their mapping app.
The time dilation trap hits you hard. I remember looking up the route from the entrance to Big Meadows Lodge, only 40 miles, and the GPS confidently proclaimed estimated time 1 hour and 45 minutes.
And that's the moment.
That's the moment you realize your mental calculation of a mile a minute has been completely thrown out the window.
Yeah.
That 35-mile-per-hour speed limit, which feels like you are crawling, must be accepted as the maximum potential speed.
A standard 30-mile stretch will take you a minimum of 1 hour, and as we said, that quickly stretches to 90 minutes if you run into any congestion. A slow RV, a fallen branch, or the inevitable bear jam.
You must mentally downshift your entire itinerary. This isn't a freeway.
It's a nature viewing platform that happens to connect 2 points.
While I was adjusting to the federally mandated slowness, my sensory first impression was just the saturation of green. It's an overwhelming, solid wall of color from the canopy. It felt entirely enclosed.
And the immediate close-up wildlife accessibility. We talked about habituation, and you see the evidence instantly. Within 10 minutes of passing the gate, we saw a deer grazing calmly right on the shoulder, completely unafraid of the passing traffic.
And that's your immediate, necessary safety check. Your eye has to be on the road, not the view, because wildlife encounters in the road corridor are constant and sudden.
For sure. Once you reach the central hub, Big Meadows, the infrastructure starts to define the experience. The check-in process at the main lodge feels distinctly retro. The architecture, the lobby, the service pace.
It's slow and functional.
Exactly. It's operating on 1950s infrastructure that hasn't seen a massive modernization overhaul. You're feeling the age.
Yeah, you're feeling the limitations of being confined to a high-elevation plateau. It doesn't feel rough, but it certainly doesn't feel sleek or modern.
But then you have the payoff, the magic moment. You walk out onto the massive expanse of the Big Meadow Plateau at dusk.
Oh, it's incredible.
This is a huge area of wildflowers and tall grass high above the valley. The air cools instantly, the mist starts to roll in, and you get a complete reprieve from the car noise and human activity.
That's where the high accessibility meets the promise of genuine nature. I remember seeing a doe nursing a fawn right near the boundary of the field. It was completely safe, totally visible, and provided that pure, tranquil moment of high elevation peace.
So the initial verdict, based on that first impression, is high accessibility and low stress if you obey the Skyline Crawl.
Right. But the park feels profoundly managed.
And that management costs money.
Exactly. And that managed feeling extends straight into your wallet, which brings us to segment 3, costs and value the wallet perspective. And I need to be blunt. Shenandoah presents a significant financial trap if you are not careful. It is shockingly expensive for in-park lodging.
We've established the dichotomy. Expensive if you want A roof and a bed inside the park, but incredibly cheap if you are self-sufficient.
Let's detail the accommodation tiers. Start with the biggest shock.
Yeah.
The high band staying at Skyline or Big Meadows lodges. You were looking at, what, $180 to $300 or more per night?
Depending on the season and room type, yeah. It gets up there.
And for that premium price, what do you get? A rustic room, often with thin walls, limited soundproofing, and often lacking modern amenities like air conditioning in the older units.
And this is where I need to insert some critical flexion. So you're telling me that we are paying up to $300 a night for thin walls and no AC.
That's right.
That sounds like pure price gouging. How does the park even justify charging rates comparable to a high-end city hotel for something so rustic?
That is the core value trap.
Mm.
You are not paying for the quality of the room or the amenities. You are paying purely for the location, the convenience of stepping out of your door and instantly being on the ridge for a sunrise hike.
So it's a location tax.
As a location tax. The sources confirm this model is common among park concessionaires managing historic properties. The payment is for exclusivity and proximity, not luxury.
Okay, so if you're determined to stay within the park but need to stay cheap, you look to the mid-band, the Potomac Appalachian Trail Club, or PATC cabins.
They're an incredible deal, ranging from $40 to $80 a night.
Phenomenal price.
But huge effort required. There's a crucial catch. They require a significant hike in, often several challenging miles, have zero electricity, and are typically heated by a wood stove.
And you have to book them the instant they open up, months in advance. They are prized by serious hikers.
Absolutely. And finally, the low band, which provides unbeatable value if you plan ahead. Camping. Campgrounds like Big Meadows, Loft Mountain, or Matthews Arm are only $30 a night.
Again, weekend spots require booking months in advance.
Non-negotiable. Now let's discuss the secondary financial trap, which is the food. The concessionaire trap is real and pervasive.
A single contracted entity handles all in-park dining, which means they have a captive audience, and they exercise that power relentlessly.
The prices are absurdly high for consistently low quality. We're talking $20 for a basic preformed burger and fries.
Or $18 for a standard breakfast buffet. We've seen multiple reviews describing the quality as consistently cafeteria level. It's designed for efficiency, not for culinary quality.
And this spirals into the biggest single financial risk for a family. If you are a family of 4 relying on the lodges for 3 meals a day, you could easily spend $250 to $300 a day just on food and drinks.
Wow. Over a 4-day trip, that's a massive expense with no real reward. The math is clear. You can save the cost of a night's lodging just by packing your own meals for 2 days.
Which brings us to the budget tip, or what I like to call the fill strategy, named after a hiker who meticulously planned his food budget.
I like it.
The fix is simple and non-negotiable. Before you enter the park, stop at the nearest major grocery store or Walmart in Front Royal or Harrisonburg. Buy a large cooler. Fill it with sandwiches, snacks, easy-to-prep breakfasts, and drinks.
Eat breakfast and lunch entirely out of the trunk of your car in a picnic area or at a scenic overlook. That strategy immediately saves you up to $200 a day.
Only dine at the lodge for a single dinner, purely to experience the unique sunset view, and accept that you are paying for the view, not the plate.
Good advice.
Beyond lodging and food, the other costs are relatively standard. The entry fee is $30 per vehicle, valid for 7 days, or free with the America the Beautiful Pass.
If you plan to visit 3 national parks in a year, just buy the pass. It pays for itself.
Absolutely. Fuel, however, is a localized trap. Gas is available at Big Meadows, but it is priced astronomically.
The sources call it liquid gold.
They do. Fill up outside the park before you start your ascent. Don't risk running low on the ridge.
And a small but crucial operational cost. Old rag. The mandatory $1 day-use ticket is cheap, but without it, the entire high-demand hike is inaccessible.
Okay, so let's review the final budget matrix for 2 people sharing accommodations.
The dirtbag hiker, camping and self-cooking, is spending approximately $45 per person per day. That's unbeatable access to a national park.
The comfort hiker, staying outside the park in Luray, packing lunch and eating a nice dinner in town, is looking at a very manageable $150 a day.
That's the most balanced value proposition, I think.
I agree. And the lodge tourist, staying inside the park and eating all meals with a concessionaire, clocks in at around $350 per day. You must decide if the convenience justifies that premium.
Which it probably doesn't.
So the final verdict on lodging value is only positive if your sole priority is having that balcony sunset view. For the vast majority of day hikers, staying 20 minutes outside the park in Luray or Harrisonburg, saves you $150 to $200 a night with minimal impact on your itinerary.
Don't be trapped by the convenience. And convenience is exactly what the next segment targets. Because time in Shenandoah is the resource most easily stolen.
Segment 4. Logistics and planning traps. On a map, Shenandoah looks like an easy place to navigate. It is not. The operational details bite you constantly.
Trap number 1 is the high-demand bottleneck, Old Rag. This hike is famous for a reason.
It is easily the park's most rewarding hike. A legitimate, fun rock scramble where you are using your entire body to pull yourself up ledges and traverse slabs. It's physically engaging.
But its sheer popularity, it's so close to the D.C. area, led to massive overcrowding, resource degradation, and safety issues.
Which led to the critical fix, the mandatory ticketing system implemented by the park. You absolutely cannot simply show up and start hiking.
This is the same management strategy used by many Western parks now to protect high-demand trails.
You must acquire a day-use ticket on recreation.gov. Tickets are released in 2 batches, 30 days out and 5 days out. This requires planning.
And the sources are crystal clear. If you arrive at the trailhead at 8 a.m. on a peak Saturday and you don't have that ticket, the rangers will turn you away, regardless of how far you drove.
So the solution requires commitment.
It does.
Yeah.
Set your alarm and secure that ticket the minute it drops online. Or, if you are flexible, heed our source's suggestion. Commit to hiking Old Rag on a Tuesday in November. It's still rewarding, still beautiful, and the pressure is gone.
Trap number 2 reinforces our earlier discussion, the Skyline Drive cluster management. We can't say it enough. 30 miles equals 60 to 90 minutes of driving.
You must internalize this time dilation factor into every single day's itinerary. If you try to plan your day like a normal road trip, you will spend 5 hours driving and only 2 hours hiking. This park will steal your time if you don't fight back.
The fix is geographical grouping. The park is unofficially divided into North, Central, and South districts, and you need to treat them as separate destinations.
Yes, do not attempt to combine hikes in far-flung districts on the same day.
For example, don't try to hike Hawksbill Summit in the Central District in the morning and then drive 40 miles north to attempt the North Marshall hike for sunset.
You will spend your entire afternoon crawling at that federally mandated 35-mile-per-hour speed limit, stuck behind whatever large vehicle is currently dominating the road.
Instead, group your activity.
Yeah.
If you're in the Central District, focus on Hawksbill and the Dark Hollow Falls area. If you are in the north, combine North Marshall with Compton Peak. Limit your daily driving mileage.
Smart.
Trap number 3 is the resort expectation failure, especially when booking Skyland or Big Meadows. The name Lodge implies certain amenities that are simply not present.
It is not a resort. There is no pool. There is no spa. The infrastructure is old and fragile.
And crucially,
The Wi-Fi is consistently described as substandard, often garbage, struggling to handle the traffic. And cell signal is non-existent across nearly 80% of the park, due to the deep canyons and the nature of the ridge itself.
that lack of digital lifeline is a critical reality check for the modern traveler. You can't rely on streaming content, and you certainly can't rely on a cell signal for urgent assistance or navigation if you get turned around on a complex trail.
Therefore, the fix is non-negotiable and requires pre-planning. You must download all of your navigation materials before you enter the park gate.
Both Google Maps for driving and AllTrails or Gaia for hiking.
Yes. And bring a physical book, a deck of cards, or analog entertainment for the evenings. Plan on being disconnected.
Finally, let's solidify the essential gear checklist, which reflects the specific terrain and climate of the Appalachians. First, trekking poles.
Absolutely essential, not just optional. The Appalachian Trail and its feeder trails are notoriously rocky and rooty, often described as ankle-breaking terrain.
It's just constant ups and downs, filled with obstacles and loose rock.
The poles provide that crucial 4-point stability, reducing impact, and helping prevent debilitating sprains, especially during downhill stretches.
Second, the chemical armor. Bug spray with DT. Ticks are not an annoyance here. They are a Tier 1 safety threat, which we will detail next. You need chemical defense.
And third, layers. The ridge environment is extremely volatile. It can be 85 degrees Fahrenheit in Luray, down in the valley, but a cool, windy 75 degrees on the mountain.
That's a huge swing. You need a shell, a fleece, and breathable layers to manage that constant 10-degree temperature difference and the fast-moving weather fronts. Okay, segment 5, safety, comfort, and wildlife protocol. We need to reset your perspective. What people typically fear most isn't the biggest threat here.
Right. Most people worry about aggressive bears, but while the bear reality is real due to the high density, the risk is different. They are low aggression but highly habituated.
They view humans not as a threat.
But as a source of easy calories, they are intelligent, highly effective, and bold thieves.
Bold is the key word there.
Exactly. They have learned that humans are sloppy. We see reports of bears walking right through busy picnic areas or campsites, not running away, but deliberately searching for unattended backpacks or crumbs.
So the protocol is straightforward and must be rigidly followed. Keep all food and scented items within arm's reach or secured in a vehicle or a bear locker.
Never, ever leave a scrap of food on a picnic table or unattended if you step away from the car for 5 minutes.
And if you encounter one on the trail.
The key is to make yourself look large and make noise. Yell, clap, talk loudly. Do not run. They almost always retreat when they realize they've been detected.
Okay. However, the real safety risk, the genuine Tier 1 threat, is far smaller than a bear. The tick population and the high prevalence of Lyme disease in Virginia.
This is the single biggest health concern in the park.
This is non-negotiable protocol territory, especially if you venture off-trail or into meadows. Wear light-colored pants and tuck them into your socks.
The light color helps you spot the ticks easily as they contrast sharply against the fabric.
And the most vital action happens every single night. Perform a thorough head-to-toe tick check. Pay obsessive attention to hidden, warm areas. The hairline, the waistband, the armpits, the groin.
Ticks need time to attach and transmit disease. You must interrupt that process. Additionally, the sources recommend showering immediately after hiking to wash off any ticks that haven't yet attached.
Speaking of things you don't want to touch, the ubiquitous vegetation threat. Poison ivy. This is an eastern threat that Western hikers often forget about.
It is everywhere. It lines the trails, especially where the trails narrow or near water sources. You need to constantly reinforce the mantra, leaves of 3, let it be.
You have to exercise extreme caution even when briefly stepping off trail to let others pass or to take a break.
For sure. Finally, the climate threat. Fast, violent summer storms. The weather changes incredibly fast on the ridge due to its elevation and exposure.
A cloudless blue sky can transition into a violent, thunderous, lightning-filled deluge in as little as 20 minutes.
You must respect the sound of thunder. If you hear it, it is already too close.
The protocol is simple. If you hear thunder, you need to execute an immediate retreat off exposed peaks. Stony Man and Hawksbill, two of the most popular summits, essentially act as natural lightning rods during a sudden electrical storm.
Get low, get covered, and don't risk being the tallest object on the ridgeline.
Now that we've covered the logistics and the dangers, let's move into what makes this park worth the planning effort. Segment 6. Peak experiences versus peak disappointment. It's all about contextualizing the beauty with the crowd factor.
Okay.
I'll start with the hike that delivers the best return on investment, Stony Man Summit. This is low effort, maximum view.
Okay, describe the effort and the payoff.
It's short, maybe 1.6 miles round trip from the parking area. The trail is well maintained, very accessible, and it leads you out onto this spectacular, jagged rock summit with views looking straight west.
Perfect for a sunset.
It is the perfect sunset hike. As the sun sinks behind the distant Alleghenies, the entire Shenandoah Valley floor turns this incredible, soft, hazy purple. I sat there for over an hour watching the light change. It felt epic, and yet I had only spent 30 minutes hiking to achieve it.
That's the perfect training wheels hike for families or anyone who needs an instant reward.
Exactly. What about you?
My absolute peak experience was earning the Scramble Triumph. Old Rag at sunrise. We discussed the mandatory ticketing, but the reward for setting that 4:30 a.m. alarm is immense.
Wow, that's early.
It is. We started hiking at 5:30 a.m. with headlamps, hit the rock scramble, where you are genuinely pulling yourself through narrow chutes and over steep ledges, just as the first light was touching the mountain peaks.
So you essentially beat all the crowds.
We did. We had the summit entirely alone for a solid 10 minutes. The physical exertion of the scramble, combined with the absolute solitude and the reward of the 360-degree view, made the experience entirely unforgettable. It felt like we had wrestled the mountain and won.
That scramble is what differentiates Old Rag from every other trail in the park.
Without a doubt.
My second high point was finding the solitude of water, White Oak Canyon. I found the beauty when everyone else decided to leave.
You hiked in the rain, didn't you?
I did. I hiked in the steady, heavy drizzle. And because the weather was marginal, everyone else cleared out. The entire canyon, which features several magnificent waterfalls, was absolutely roaring with water volume.
Oh, that must have been incredible.
The moss on the rocks turned this intense, nearly fluorescent neon green. It felt completely immersive, almost like walking through a Pacific Northwest rainforest rather than Virginia. It was just me and the incredible deafening sound of the rushing water.
A stark, beautiful contrast to the silence of the Skyline Drive crawl. Now, let's balance that with the realities of overcrowding. The peak disappointment often comes when accessibility ruins the mood.
My primary disappointment was Dark Hollow Falls on a peak Saturday at noon. It's a beautiful, easy-to-access waterfall requiring only a short, steep hike down from the Skyline Drive. Its accessibility, however, is its curse.
A conga line of people.
A conga line. We saw dozens of people in flip-flops trying to navigate the slick, rooty path. There were screaming kids, multiple groups blasting music from Bluetooth speakers. It completely ruined the auditory and visual nature experience. It turned a beautiful natural spot into a theme park queue.
And my disappointment relates directly back to the concessionaire trap and the high cost for low quality, the expensive food fare.
Oh, no.
I had read about the famous, supposedly mandatory blackberry ice cream pie at Big Meadows Lodge. I had built it up in my mind as this rustic regional delight. It cost $12. I was excited.
And what happened when it arrived?
It arrived looking exactly as it should, with a lattice crust and a dollop of whipped cream. But I took the first bite, and it was frozen solid, not cold solid. It tasted purely of freezer burn, like it had been sitting in the back of an industrial freezer since last September.
Oh, that's just heartbreaking.
The hype, the high cost, and the expectation of a regional treat completely failed to meet the reality of sad, industrial, pre-made dessert. It was the physical manifestation of the park's financial and quality value trap.
That's why the fill strategy is so crucial. Avoid that disappointment entirely.
Absolutely. Now that we've established Shenandoah's niche as the accessible, historical, and family-friendly park, let's address the solitude seekers. Segment 7. If not Shenandoah, where?
Right. If you're seeking something different, a grander scale, deeper solitude, or a truly rugged experience, where should you look in the Appalachians?
If you are seeking bigger, more majestic mountains, true Appalachian giants that rise higher and present more complex terrain, you look directly south to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in North Carolina and Tennessee.
The Smokies offer a much more classic, rugged mountain experience. They just feel older and larger.
They do. However, the downside to the Smokies is that the accessibility issue is often far worse than Shenandoah.
Yes, the traffic in the immediate areas like Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, and even on some of the main arterial roads in the park, makes the Skyline Crawl look like the Autobahn.
The Smokies are more majestic, but Shenandoah's congestion is at least linear and somewhat predictable, while the Smokies can suffer from catastrophic regional gridlock.
Okay, so what about the true solitude seeker, the person who agreed with my hardcore backpacker verdict of mostly no?
They need to make the pro move and bypass Shenandoah entirely. Head 2 hours west into West Virginia, specifically the Dolly Sods Wilderness area within the Monongahela National Forest.
What makes Dolly Sods so distinct? I hear it looks like Canada.
It does. It sits on a high plateau, and the atmosphere is entirely distinct from the gentle, hazy Blue Ridge. It's windswept, rocky, dominated by red spruce, and features vast expanses of grassy, open plains and bogs. It's a harsh, beautiful, and utterly untamed environment.
And the pros for that hardcore backpacker?
Zero crowds compared to Shenandoah. True raw wilderness and critically free primitive camping. You can find deep solitude there.
And the necessary cons. This is where the preparation matters.
The cons are severe. Absolutely no amenities, no visitor centers, no lodges, and you must have superior navigation skills. The trails are often poorly marked, crossing large, challenging bogs.
You need reliable map and compass skills.
For sure. Furthermore, the weather is famously brutal. It changes instantly, capable of producing sudden whiteouts, persistent, dense fog, and wind that can knock you off balance, even in summer. This is for the prepared solitude hunter.
That's a significant upgrade in required skill level, and for a unique, memorable experience that combines high elevation with something truly unexpected.
Grayson Highlands State Park in Southern Virginia, near the NC border. The highlight there is the incredible population of wild ponies.
Wild ponies.
They roam the huge balds, these open mountaintops, and often walk right up to hikers with a curious non-aggressiveness. It's spectacular hiking terrain, and the ponies add a spectacular, unique, and family-friendly feature.
So if you do decide on Shenandoah, we strongly recommend the strategic combo itinerary. town and country.
Hmm.
You need to balance the logistics.
Yeah, if you're committing to the drive from the Northeast or Mid-Atlantic, plan for a balanced 4-day-long weekend. Spend 2 days fully immersed in the park, hitting your goals like Stony Man for sunset and securing those old rag tickets.
Then, drive 45 minutes south to Charlottesville. This provides the perfect balance. You trade the sweaty hike vibe for luxury wine tasting and history.
You can explore the vineyards, which are outstanding, and visit Thomas Jefferson's historic home, Monticello. It turns a hiking trip into a perfectly well-rounded regional getaway.
I love that idea. Okay, finally, segment 8. The final verdict matrix and timing. We need to clearly categorize who this park is built for and who should avoid it.
Let's do it.
Traveler type 1. The hardcore backpacker seeking solitude.
Verdict: mostly no. As we established, the park is too narrow. You can hear cars from the ridge almost anywhere, which kills the illusion of deep wilderness. You cannot achieve that truly lost feeling.
But is there a qualification to that? Mostly no.
There is. If you are determined to push your limits within Shenandoah, focus on the most complex backcountry loops in the deep southern district, which are less trafficked. Otherwise, head straight to Dolly Sods or the more remote sections of the AT outside the park.
Okay. Traveler type 2. The mid-range couple looking for a romantic, accessible getaway.
Verdict: yes, with conditions. It is inherently romantic, especially at sunset, if your expectations regarding lodging quality are managed. Stay in a cozy B&B in Luray or a small, self-contained cabin at Lewis Mountain to avoid the concessionaire trap.
Do the beautiful sunset hikes.
And critically, bring your own wine, your own cheese, and your own better food.
And the crucial condition for them. Avoid mid-October peak foliage weekends at all costs. That level of traffic congestion will test even the strongest relationship.
Amen to that. Traveler type 3. The family with young or new hikers.
Verdict: resounding yes. This is the park's absolute sweet spot. The hikes are short, rewarding, and safe. Stony Man, Black Rock Summit. The visitor centers are excellent and educational, particularly at Big Meadows.
And most importantly, the wildlife is visible safely, often right from the car. Your kids will see a bear, or they will see a deer within 20 feet, and they will remember that encounter forever.
It is safe, manageable, and highly rewarding for children.
Absolutely. Okay, traveler type 4. The luxury traveler expecting high-end service.
Verdict: no. There's no luxury here. The lodges are historic and rustic, the walls are thin, and the food is cafeteria quality. Do not book lodging expecting 5-star service or amenities.
If you absolutely require high-end amenities and service, you must stay at a resort outside the park, like the Salamander Resort in Middleburg, and drive in for a day trip using the techniques we discuss.
So our final overall verdict: Shenandoah is a logistics triumph if you treat it as a scenic drive with highly rewarding, manageable hiking pit stops.
It is an absolute value trap if you try to treat it like a luxury resort or a rugged remote wilderness expedition.
It is a place of gentle, historical beauty, highly accessible, defined by that signature blue haze.
And infused with the profound history of displacement and reclamation. It truly is the mountains for everyone, provided they plan properly.
And let's nail down the best timing to maximize your pleasure and minimize the traffic pain.
May is ideal. You get the best of the wildflowers, the waterfalls are still roaring from spring rain, and you miss the worst of the summer crowds and humidity.
September is excellent for clear skies and comfortable hiking temperatures right before the serious leaf peepers arrive.
And as a final, repeated existential warning, avoid October weekends at all costs. That is peak congestion season.
Do not do it.
Let's leave you with a final contemplative thought that builds on the history. The true, inexpressible value of Shenandoah is not found in the expensive lodge room or the crowded Dark Hollow Falls trail. It is found by intentionally going on a Tuesday morning, waking up for sunrise, and sitting quietly on a remote ridge. It is in that moment that you absorb the blue haze and you contemplate the rewilded history of the families that live there. It's about appreciating the slow, quiet, inevitable process of nature taking back what man left behind. That is the deep dive.
That is the profound meaning right there. Okay, let's make that knowledge actionable for your next Appalachian adventure. Your 3 non-negotiable steps. Pack that cooler, download your offline maps and all trails, and religiously adhere to the 35-mile-per-hour speed limit. Safe travels, and watch for those bold, habituated bears.
Thank you for taking the deep dive with us. We hope you apply these insights to make your next trip unforgettable.